The look I'm best known for?
Mardu Steel.
Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today I just have one question. Is Cori-Steel Cutter a reasonable card in Legacy in a non-blue deck? And this is something that I have been thinking about for a while, and I was thumbing through one of Joe Dyer's recent MTG Goldfish articles, and I came across this in the Spice Corner, and this absolutely caught my attention. Cori-Steel Cutter can ramp up damage very quickly, and when you turn a blue card into another blue card, into another blue card, into another blue card over the course of a few turns, you can ramp up a lot of damage. But what does it look like when you're not just repeatedly cantripping? That is something that I've been curious about, and I want to know how this feels in just air, red, plus some other color decks. And so I'm going to use one of my dealer's choice donation deck lists from Edison to explore this idea. The rest of the shell, honestly, is nothing new here. It's just a bunch of powerful cards that have seen play at some point during Legacy's history. Staff of the Storyteller is probably the spiciest one here. In a pre-Orcish Bowmaster world, this was super popular. Like, this card was absolutely all over the place. And then it kind of fell off the face of the earth. Mardu decks in Legacy historically are a little bit sketchy. There are some things that I don't like about this deck list. Being a Wasteland deck while being a 3-color deck is a little bit scary, but this deck is in theory very, very low to the ground. This is from a 5-0 league. This was in the deck list dumps, so it should at least have some degree of legs, and I've just got to know for my own personal curiosity, how is this in a fair deck? Let's find out. Cori-Steel Cutter is one of those cards that maybe you should own, and if you don't own it yet, consider ordering from my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is awesome. If you're going to MagicCon Vegas, look for this big purple banner. It's pretty distinctive. There's going to be some great deals under that in person on some stuff that they won't necessarily sell on their website. So if you're looking for bargain deals on maybe some HP dual lands or something like that, check them out. You'll find some good deals. But if you're ordering online, remember to use promo code ThrabenU to save yourself a bit on your order. And with that being said, you've seen the synergy stuff before, so let's just get in there and battle. Okay, the Surveil land in the opening hand is not perfect here. I might be keeping this one anyway. I can do a scrub land into Elegant Parlor to... Oh no, don't... Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's kind of fine. So, that helps a lot. Do I want to make a called shot on Cabal Therapy immediately? I don't think I do. This could be a show and tell variant. It's probably more likely that this is something in the Storm ballpark. My guess is that this is going to be like a mono red Storm deck. I think I want another turn of information. I think I'm going to hope that I don't die immediately. I'm going to play Scrub into my cat and pass the turn. And hope I don't die here. With a turn worth of information, I think I have a better chance of hitting with Cabal Therapy. Fun's having some fun in the chat. They said, "Mom, I made it," when they realized they were going to make it into a YouTube channel. Well, Curtis, don't disappoint your mother. You've got to win now. Do it for the Mother of Runes. Who I assume is your mother. Okay. Red Storm is indeed correct. There is a Ruby Medallion. Oh no, we are going now. There is a Jeska's Will. My opponent has 9 mana to work with. What's the last card, Curtis? I've got to reread this one. Each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards. So I have a Cabal Therapy that I can flashback here. So I could go down 1 card in an attempt to find Orcish Bowmasters for the future? Or more discard? I think I'm okay with that. These are Magic the Gathering cards. Amped Raptor is another look at something. Now I don't have a Swords for Ral. I don't even know if I'm going to get another turn, though, if I am being completely honest. Like, my opponent is casting more mana here, which means that they are, continuing to attempt to go off. Between Ruby Medallion and Ral, this can get pretty gross. But my opponent's last card needs to be payoff, or they need to transform Ral. That is a win, unfortunately for me. So now Ral has a gajillion deloyalty, and 8 cards end up in exile. So 16 mana and all of this stuff. I suspect that at this point I am deterministically dead to Burning Wish, even if it is a past the turn line that just generates a bunch of mana. So there's a Grape Shot. So what I suspect the line is Grape Shot, kill Ocelot Pride, send a bunch at my face, Burning Wish number 2, and get Past in Flames, and then Past in Flames allows them to rebuy the Grape Shot. Didn't even bother to kill my cat. All right, that was Will of the Just. Oh, Will of the Just guy also just gives flashback. That was easier than my line. GG. So, if on turn 1 I make the called shot that my opponent is on Ruby Storm and a Cabal Therapy Ruby Medallion, I buy a turn? That might be all I buy. Maybe I end up sacrificing the Ocelot Pride or something from Ajani the following turn to have an okay shot at getting through this. I like Thoughtseize. I might play Surgical to surgically extract things that I discard, rather than viewing Surgical Extraction as an outright way to stop what my opponent is doing. Stuff that looks like this is probably too slow here. Prismatic Ending can get rid of a Medallion or a Ral. I don't really know that I like Null Rod. These decks don't always even max out on artifact mana. Like, sometimes I might only play like 3 Lotus Petals. I'm gonna say this is good enough, but this is where I definitely want cards like Deafening Silence that just aren't in this sideboard. You maybe don't want things that look like Deafening Silence if you are trying to be the Cori-Steel Cutter deck. That's something that I wasn't really considering. I just picked up this list and hit the record button, but that's a very weird tension in deck building because normally Mardu decks that look like this one operate on a combination of permanent-based hate and discard to attack the hand. Cori-Steel Cutter is making it so those like Deafening Silence, Aethersworn Canonist style cards get worse. Fascinating. We will take Ral Monsoon Mage. My opponent is sitting there entirely with mana. Ocelot Pride is cool and all. Probably want another white here, so we will go white-red. I think I will fire off Amped Raptor immediately. Just try to get some good value off of this. Yeah, we will cast an Amped Raptor. All right, so this, based on the wording here, then if you cast it from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library. So we bank the energy for later, but we're not actually getting to do the pseudo cascade thing again. All right, that is a Reckless Impulse. Am I into Amped Raptor yet again? I don't get to attack these cards that are sitting in exile. My opponent can play a Ral and try to do some cool stuff. Thoughtseize is just kind of okay. I think I'm going to try to high roll here. Swords to Plowshares is not the high roll that I am looking for, unfortunately. I will send in for 4. I wanted to hit another creature and turn this into a 2-turn clock. That's what I was hoping for in not playing Thoughtseize there. I'd like to draw another land. So my opponent gets to play Ral, and then they can go Rite of Flame. But that's Rite of Flame into Reckless Impulse with... Oh, there was a floating mana into Seething Song. That's fine then. So that with the floating mana is good. Burning Wish and another Reckless Impulse. Sure. It honestly might be perfectly reasonable to Burning Wish for Grape Shot and just clear board. I wonder if that's what my opponent's thinking about. We are doing the Reckless Impulse. Revealing a Manamorphose. Ral is a Planeswalker. Now, if my opponent ceases being able to go off, this can just kill 2 Amped Raptors. Alright, Ral just pluses up to 8. Oh no, opponent says, oh god, that was bad. I thought since I had Storm 6 that he would be 8, but forgot he was this turn. Yeah, so my opponent transformed this believing that they were going to be able to -8 it immediately. We'll see if they can recover from that. There's still certainly decent options. Double Burning Wish. Mana is getting tight. Rouse Plus means that the Manamorphose is netting mana. I think at this point I don't die this turn. But I might not have a board. So here's the first Burning Wish. Ooh. Okay, so my opponent just takes an extra turn. So all the storm stuff has been cleared, but my opponent can just minus this Ral and send a bunch of stuff to exile. That's a respectable amount of mana. So that's 11. After that, Jessica's Will. And then 15 after the second one. I guess they have to win this turn, right? Or Alchemist's Gambit kills them. I mean, there's access to, like, Wish and Burning Wish already. So, seems pretty reasonable that I die. So there's a new Ral. And we'll watch Ral do Ral's thing. 10 mana after Manamorphose. Basically infinite mana after this Seething Song. So now my opponent can send 8 more cards to exile. Is that a Ral Plus? Yeah, that was a Ral Plus. Fascinating. Not where I was expecting that to go. Alright, Reckless Impulse. Again, we've still got that Burning Wish going on, so I suspect that that does me in. There's the Grape Shot. I am currently at 17 life, so we just build the Storm count a little bit more, and then I get Grape Shotted to death. I'm going to go ahead and concede there. I see the writing on the wall. So I was trying to play to win by like doing good things with Amped Raptor. If I Thoughtseize my opponent, it is possible that I slow them down a turn, but the good cards were already in exile, and I couldn't Thoughtseize the cards hanging out in exile, which were the cards that I wanted to take. GG's. Interesting game. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you want to see upcoming sets, if you want to understand commander brackets, or if you just want an awesome place to store all, and I mean all, of your deck lists, Moxfield is the place. You can organize all of your decks by folders, and you can even change the views. You like visual, they've got that. You like text, they've got that. Check out my Moxfield Pro Field if you want to see all, and I mean all, of the decks that I've been cooking up. Alrighty, we've got the Cori-Steel Cutter here. We'll see where it goes. We have an Esper Sentinel, which is kind of annoying if I wanted to do turn 1 Thoughtseize here. I can ping this with a Bowmaster in a minute. I think I am going to start on my own basic planes here to just be a little bit less predictable. Okay. Maybe I can ambush both in combat. I'll take my 1. Ooh, opponent does not have more land. That is fantastic for me. I'm going to try to get both in combat. Oh, alright. The plan has changed. I think I need to respect Mom long term here. So now I could Thoughtseize, let my opponent draw some cards, and ping their shit. I don't really want my opponent to draw cards, though. So what I think I'm going to do is cast an Amped Raptor. And if I hit a non-creature spell, I'm just not interested in casting it. Even if it's good, I think. Which, that is pretty good. I'm going to attack in with the Orc Army. I don't think I'm willing to trade Bowmasters. 19. Play Ocelot Pride. Beginning next turn, I can probably just start thinking about casting these things around the taxation of Esper Sentinels. Reasonable. Let's go to Punchies. Punchies, Punchies, Punchies. Still not willing to send Bowmasters in. All right, 16, fantastic. 15. I can play Cori-Steel Cutter around tax and then just try to naturally equip it. I'm not super interested in that, though. I think this is just Thoughtseize time. So do that. Going to just pay. Ooh, okay. Plan is noted. I understand why my opponent kept the hand. Surprise indeed. Artifacts and creatures. I'm going to take a Dreadnought. I will get a friend. So hopefully my opponent doesn't find the land. Okay, that's reasonable. So now I will surveil land. I, in theory, could want a second red. I'm going to get Elegant Parlor. I don't want that here. It's very awkward versus the Esper Sentinels. Keeping my opponent off of lands is so important right now. That is some sicko shit right there. Wow, okay. First spell? Cori-Steel Cutter. Pay 2 mana for a total of 4. Then Cabal Therapy afterwards. Red and 1. Pay. Cabal Therapy. Target you. Triggers Cori-Steel Cutter. Name Doorkeeper Thrall. Sorry, Thrall. Oh, do we get the concession? Yeah. That was disgusting. So a lot of times I criticize my opponent's mulligans because I think the London Mulligan is just one of the most powerful things in the game of Magic. I would have kept that hand. If I had double Esper Sentinel, like Doorkeeper Thrall and Phyrexian Dreadnought, and all I need is 1 mana or an Aether Vial to make that happen, I am down for that. That is appropriate risk reward. I just happened to play around Esper Sentinel hyper aggressively this game, and I got very rewarded for it. Get in there. Get in there. Get in there. This is just a bonus removal spell. And then there's some ancillary stuff that we could think about that's not super important. But if I don't like the slots, I have options. I am not 100% sure what I want to get rid of. It might be something like Staff of the Storyteller, because Gatekeeper Thrall shuts off creature and artifact ETBs. So this is just not going to get its same degree of potency. I would have to look up the exact wording. So the wording of Staff of the Storyteller is a little weird. It's not when one enters, it's when you create one. I wonder if that is just functionally identical to enters the battlefield for rules purposes. Okay, so I think I'm pulling those, and then I'm a little less certain where to go from there. Go down 1 cat, question mark? I think I want an abundance of discard. I would prefer to answer things with removal, but I think I just need removal plus discard to have enough to deal with all the random bullshit that my opponent might have over there. Like, they might just overload my removal if I am trying to play on removal alone. I would not be too surprised if my opponent's deck is a Clarion Conqueror deck in post-sideboard games. That seems like the sort of thing is good. That's good here. It might not be in the main deck due to negative synergy with Aether Vial, but I've seen a couple of players messing around with stuff that looks like this, and it's looked respectable. Okay, I have a medium-looking opening hand here. If my opponent is playing non-basics, Wasteland is super cool here. Reluctant keep, question mark? I don't know my opponent's ratios of lands. I literally saw 1 land the previous game. I believe that I am willing to wasteland this Ancient Den. My opponent had quite a few draw steps to hit a land previously. They also could be a Mox Opal deck, so like, I think I am good with just trading some resources back and forth for a little while, and then answering an Esper Sentinel. Mycosynth Gardens exists so that you can copy a Phyrexian Dreadnought with it, just in case you're like, what the fuck is that there for? Alright, opponent has their own wasteland now. So I need to do a quick basic land check. I have plains, I have swamp, I do not have mountain. I think I am okay fetching plains to put a Guide of Souls in play, using Bowmaster to get rid of Esper Sentinel, and then casting like a red card. Ooh, now I want to get rid of that. Okay, cool. So, fetch, swamp, Prismatic Ending on Vial, pay for Esper Sentinel tax. I think I am the beatdown here, despite the fact that I have a lower life total. I think I don't care about the 1 damage that I take back from an Esper Sentinel here. Like, I think this card is just going to die to a Bowmasters, and I just don't care. Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna do that this turn. I was really planning on playing this Bowmasters. Like, I was so convinced that I was going to do that. But if my opponent is not making plays, I just get to get so much more energy by waiting. Yeah, so now I will go Bowmasters, double trigger Guide of Souls, which I'll just yield to. Kill that creature, get 2 more energy. I don't need to Cabal Therapy anything right now. Send in, pay with this, make one of these fly. Punch my opponent for a lot. I have 3, 4, 5, 6 power on board, soon to be more. Torpor Orb. Okay. So I will now go red Cori-Steel Cutter, Cabal Therapy, target you, trigger Cori-Steel Cutter, use the ability. Did I not get energy for that? I guess this creating and entering thing is different. I'm going to look into that later. Name Phyrexian Dreadnought. Hit. Go to Punchies. Send in. Don't have enough energy here. Opponent is at 6. I got rid of this. Most of the rest of this stuff here doesn't matter. Cabal Therapy, target you, sacrifice Orc Army. I can get rid of 2 copies of Oswald Fiddlebender. I think it's more important to just get rid of something that is mana efficient. So we'll just take Swords to Plowshares. And we 2-0 that one pretty quickly. GG's. Okay, opening hand is fine. The Cori-Steel Cutter is not particularly good here. Opponent going to 5. Hopefully my Wasteland ends up being good against them. 2-4. Still possible for me to lose on turn 1 to Oops All Spells, so we got that going for us. Alright, my opponent is on 4 cards. Polluted Delta. Basic Swamp. Entomb. Grizzlebrand to Yard. Reanimate? Go away. So opponent mulliganed to 4 and now has 7 cards and a 7/7 lifelinker in play as of turn 1. I am going to concede to a discard spell that targets me. Until then, I'm going to play towards Orcish Bowmasters being played in response to a Grizzlebrand draw 7 life activation going onto the stack. However, I am not willing to give my opponent information about what deck I am playing. I will give them Marsh Flats. But as soon as something hits the stack that would cause me to reveal my hand, I'm out. You just gonna hard cast a fatty? Don't do it, I have so much to live for. Yeah, I will concede to that. Anyway, that's what this sort of stuff is for. This is unlikely to be a long match where I need to grind. Probably by similar logic, I don't need Cori-Steel Cutter. I still got 22 creatures here. This is fine. Note that in the previous game, I'm not 100% dead. I do have a Singleton Caracas there that I could have drawn, but I think I'm dead enough that it's not worth revealing the information about what deck I am playing. It's kind of awkward here with both of these Surveil lands, and like this land being bad lands to cast Cabal Therapy. We are going to name the least replaceable card, which is Entomb. All right, we did hit Entomb. That is the good news here. The bad news here is that my opponent had not only Entomb Reanimate, but also Witherbloom Apprentice and Chain of Smog. So, not great. Thoughtseize off the top. Thoughtseize off the top. You love to see it. So I lose Surgical. I did hit an untapped land. That's the good news. I believe that I am not going to Cabal Therapy here. So it is my hope that I can let my opponent resolve Witherbloom Apprentice and then take Chain of Smog. So I'm going to Ocelot Pride, gain the energy, and I'm going to Surveil land to help me inform my decisions about the remainder of the turn. I believe it just has to be Cabal Therapy, Chain of Smog, but I can choose which creature I sacrifice. So, It is unclear to me whether or not that is actually good as of next turn. I think I just need another creature. If I keep Ocelot Pride, I get an extra token immediately. But those don't attack into Witherbloom Apprentice. I'm going to get rid of Ocelot Pride and name the Chain of Smog. The issue here is that my opponent just still has 3 reanimation effects, and they can start reanimating my creatures. So the Ocelot Pride is not doing a lot over there immediately, but it's a reasonable use of 1 life, right? And like the Witherbloom Apprentice gets to trigger Magecraft. Oh, wait, hold on. That is going to actually be a problem. I think I was supposed to sack the Guide of Souls because my opponent is going to get cats. Fuck, I messed that up. These Surveil lands are very awkward right now. Alright, Cabal Therapy. Target you. I'll take Animate Dead now. We'll leave them with Reanimate since it costs life. And call it here. So that's a Cabal Therapy that's just gonna miss. But it does give my opponent another cat for what it's worth. Fatal Push does not make sense as a card to name. Like, I would just cast it in response 100% of the time. I do not like that choice. But I made a worse choice already, so we'll cut him some slack. Okay. Not what I want to see. So I know that my opponent has Reanimate in hand. Let the record show that I know that. However, I just lose the game if they get a Chain of Smog. So we are going to surgically extract Chain of Smog. We're going to do this in my opponent's draw step to give them a chance to draw Chain of Smog. Which did not happen, but they did draw Spoils of the Vault. Alright, anything else spicy in here? No, not really. So my opponent casts Spoils. And now they have Entomb plus Reanimate. Alright. GG's. Wish I had Leyline of the Void instead of Surgicals here. Okay. With no red mana and 4 red cards here, this is just not viable. This is fine. This goes turn 1 Cabal Therapy into turn 2 Ajani, sacrifice the cat token, create a Planeswalker, and can still have an Orcish Bowmasters. I think I'm going to put back the extra land. A little awkward if I get Wastelanded. And I'm just going to name a generic blue card here, such as Brainstorm or Force of Will. Let's name Brainstorm. Picked the wrong generic blue card to name, apparently. Note that I would never name Delver of Secrets Blind in the Dark like that. What's my starting loyalty on the backside of this? Ah, it's the fucking Wasteland I didn't want. Okay. Starting loyalty 3, can plus to 5. Okay. Well, fetch. White black land. Play Guide of Souls. I would really like to Cabal Therapy the cat to transform this. However, I don't think I can pass up taking out 2 Delvers here. Get out. This is only 2 card types in graveyard, so I think I'm hoping that I draw the next land to be able to Bowmaster DRC and not have to use Swords to Plowshares on it. The Surveil could mess me up. It is a Brainstorm. Sure. This is now a 3/3. My opponent gets their card draw. I did not hit the land that I wanted. So since I did not hit that land, I think I'm just going to attempt to Swords to Plowshares that creature. Fantastic. We're working towards a Murktide Regent pretty quickly, though. Fuck! We're dead. Another Delver. How dare you? How dare you? I can get a Surveil land, and maybe Delver doesn't flip. Okay. That's one of the first times that things have broken right for me here. 18. There's the next land, which means that, unfortunately, Murktide Regent is live. It's not a very big Murktide Regent, but honestly, it doesn't have to be right now. I need another land or a Swords to Plowshares very badly. That's not it. That is another land. So I'm just going to cast this immediately, kill the Delver, and hopefully we find a way to answer Murktide Regent. I've got more time for that. Anyway, I've got more time for that. The issue is that if my opponent starts playing instants and sorceries, when they play this second Murktide Regent, it grows the first. And that would be a problem. I'm technically supposed to attack with these first. Seek the Beast in response. That is a daze. Real good. Opponent's at 20. There's a magical Christmas land world where they play this, have no blue spell to follow it up. I draw a black land, I bowmaster it, and then I draw Swords to Plowshares. That's the timeline that I'm going towards. They did not fetch green mana there. Okay, they are just taking the Marktide Regent for 1 counter, which is perfectly reasonable, because if you look at the clock here, that is just lethal. Well, there's only one thing to do. Unfortunately, we do have to wasteland our own plateau. All right, next game. We will take Prismatic Ending, we will take Red Elemental Blasts, and Pyroblasts, and Galvanic Discharge is probably fine. I don't really want to be Thought Seizing and Cabal Therapy-ing my opponent. I would rather impact things on the board. I'm just going to take a second to decide whether or not I'm willing to board out all of the copies of Cabal Therapy, because they do interesting things with Ajani and Cori-Steel Cutter in particular. I think I'm willing to board them out. I think I just want dudes and removal spells. This hand is insanely difficult to play, because I don't have 3 basic lands in my deck. I have 2 basic lands. So I can choose to fetch Swamp and Basic Plains, or I can choose to fetch Basic Plains and a red source, or I could choose to fetch 2 non-basic lands. I think I'm going to... I might not be able to get basics this game. Because if I get wastelanded off of red, like if I get a basic and then I get wastelanded off of red, I am wastelanded off of 2 separate cards, not just 1. I think this is a white-red land. And I'll pass the turn. We have a Volk and a dead cat. Okay. Now I can have both of my basics while also having red. Now, if my opponent dazes, I think I want them to daze Ajani. So let's try that. I think the extra value that this card provides is just too good to not play. Next turn. Okay, so there's me getting wastelanded off of red. Now the Marsh Flats again becomes a red source. So now that it's not dazable, I will Amped Raptor. This probably has to be bad lands, though, which means that I can't double swords if I need to double swords in a minute. Ocelot Pride is fine. I'll absolutely cast that. So now I have 3 removal spells versus a Delver deck. This is a good position to be in, but my mana is super fragile. And my clock's not that good if my opponent has a single removal spell for my cat. Hey, a single removal spell for my cat. Right off the top, we'll take it. Absolutely. Yeah. That's huge. So now I can theoretically draw a card with Staff of the Storyteller while still Galvanic Discharging a smaller threat. I would like to use Galvanic Discharge on things that are smaller and save Swords to Plowshares for things that are bigger. Like, these answer Murktide Regents, and this probably doesn't. I would love to do this. Will I in fact do this? My previous stuff resolved. My opponent didn't cash in Bobble immediately. I think this resolves here, and there's a decent portion of the time where this just finds me a new removal spell. The thing that could be different this turn is that a Hydroblast is available. Alright, nope. Fuck yeah. Cast that on Delver. Oh wait, I didn't actually use colors there. Fascinating. That's not actually going to exile it. It's very funny. It's not like I would get the Bobble with that anyway, right? Because my opponent would just crack it in response. So I wasted an energy there. Oh wait, my opponent thinks it's going to remove their card. Nice. They've cracked the Bobble. And then unfortunately they get to see that it's not actually removing a creature. Alright, so now they can stack the Bobbles in a way that gives Delver a better chance of actually flipping. Delver flips to Ponder. Sure. Land drop for turn. There's a DRC. I've got removal spells for this stuff. I'm not too worried here. I would actually be much more worried if my opponent didn't make the Scalding Tarn as a land drop and was just able to find a wasteland and wasteland my bad lands. Like, that makes my life so much harder. I will take 3. This is all fine and expected. Nice. That's just comfort around a daze. I'll play that out. So let's Galvanic Discharge. a 3 energy to kill that. Go to punchies. Punchies for 5. So my opponent wants a card that's on top of their library. I think I'm going to swords now. And if my opponent were to have something like Spell Pierce, they would have to fetch and not draw that card that's on top of their library. I don't think I wasteland them. I'm not taking them off of blue for a Murktide Regent anyway. That's fine. I just think my mana is more valuable because there's going to be a lot of times where I will draw a card off Staff of the Storyteller and then want to do a 2 mana play afterwards. That is another land drop for my opponent. And just a Ponder. I was worried that the top card was going to be something like a Murktide. That if my opponent then backed up with Force of Will, I was a goner. Does not look like that is actually the case. My opponent Murktides, I go into defensive mode. That's a bobble. Another bolt? Another bolt is totally fine. Yeah. I am good with that. I still have a 4-turn clock and Staff of the Storyteller. So you get your redraw. I am interested in taking this redraw immediately, I think. Nice. I'm going to send in for 3. And I think just hold Bowmasters. My opponent has some X1 creatures that they could play out. My opponent has cantrips that they're probably going to cast. I give them one more draw at a daze or something that answers Bowmasters. I mean, like, yeah, I'll respond. Brainstorm in response. Wasteland worked out well for my opponent. Okay, cool. The Bowmasters resolves, which means I ping my opponent to 8 and trigger Staff of the Storyteller. So I don't super care that I got Wastelanded here. So this is going to be a Murktide Regent, and a Daze is not enough to protect it. These fair matchups feel great. The unfair combo stuff is rough. And a DRC. Sure. I mean, now I just know the coast is clear. So I will Swords a Murktide Regent. I don't have good attacks into this, but my opponent gets to hit me for 3, and then I get to crack them back for 5. So I'm good with where we're at. I'll take that 3. No thoughts to blocking. All right, and we are chilling. That's not bad. I guess I will go ahead and send in now. Opponent goes to 10. I'll draw a card. This would be my first spell. I think I'm just going to play Guide of Souls, honestly. Then I don't have to take fetch land damage immediately. Note that my opponent cannot choose to hold back DRC. I think of that as an obligatory attack, whereas I can choose to hold back Spirit Token, and might end up doing so. There is green mana. Nothing else. I don't have bonus red mana. I didn't want to take the fetch land damage last turn, but maybe I needed to get this equipped this turn. Oh well. Opponent says, I think you got this. I believe that you are right. I don't think it's immediate, but I believe that you're correct. That puts my opponent to 5 life, which is lethal with this stuff next turn. I think I'm just going to play out Cori-Steel Cutter. I'm going to pass the turn, but in my opponent's upkeep, I think I'm now going to Wasteland Tropical Island to keep my opponent from casting Questing Druid, just as a generic blocker. And if I block with Spirit Token, I can play around my opponent's last 2 cards being exactly Lightning Bolts, which seems like a good thing to do. Amped Raptor. Well, you know, if I must. So, trigger Guide of Souls. Let's just yield to that energy generation. I will cast a Staff of the Storyteller. Trigger Cori-Steel Cutter. I will use this ability. So, I make a token off of that. I gain my life. I do this. I make a token. I gain my life. I charge both of the copies of the staff now. Pretty sick. Go to combat. That was gross. That was a very, very good turn. I wonder if because of the interaction with Amped Raptor, Prismatic Ending should not be in the sideboard, and it should be something else that works with Amped Raptor. Some neat deck building stuff going on here. Okay, I have reasonable cards here. I have 2.5 removal spells. I have an endgame engine. Like, I like the things that are going on here. And now there's just a question of, like, what am I doing with my mana in regards to, like, basic lands? I think I ignore Red Elemental Blast and just play the game on 2 basics to start with. Let's get basic planes and drop Guide of Souls. I would like to use an Orcish Bowmasters to kill Delver of Secrets, if at all possible. Like, that is just making it so I effectively have more removal spells. And if my Bowmaster gets countered, so be it. But if it doesn't, and the Delver doesn't flip, there's huge, absolutely huge upside for me. I don't think my opponent has to bolt that immediately. I think you can wait. And if my opponent waited, they could have chosen to bolt a Bowmaster instead. Now, that's maybe not something they would have done, but they had that choice, and they took that choice away from themselves. I am going to go for the second basic here. And let's see if there is a Daze. A Daze or Force of Will backing up double Delver would be very good here. Yep. Now, next turn, I can hopefully Bowmaster one, Swords the other, but if they blind flip here, I take so much damage. Yes! That was big. That was big, folks. So my opponent has a land. It's pretty unlikely that my stuff is getting countered from here. It's possible the last card is Daze. Now I can play around that. I'm going to play this land. It could be a little awkward in a very specific instance that I'm going to hope doesn't happen. All right, I will ping a Delver. Now I think I'm just going to pass the turn and wait and remove this once I have untapped to play around Daze. Delver does not flip again. Yeah, that's fine. So in my upkeep with that trigger on the stack, I am potentially just going to Red Elemental Blast that Delver. Okay. That makes sense. They wouldn't have cracked the Bobble if they couldn't answer that. I would like to save Swords for later. So let's just Reb. I shouldn't ever need black. I have so few black cards in my deck, so let's get red-white here. We will kill a Delver. I lose Bowmasters, but then I can just start playing things that look like Staff and hopefully start grinding the game out. That is just a Brainstorm before I get another draw at an Orcish Bowmasters. That's reasonable, but it doesn't give my opponent a lot of flexibility. So I think I will play a Staff, draw my card. Sorry, not draw my card, make my token. We're going to get to drawing a card in a minute. And kind of do this turn in more or less any order. Doesn't matter too much here. So I want to play my Ocelot Pride, and then at some point I will draw a card. And then Ocelot Pride, Staff of the Storyteller, is in theory about to pop off, which is sick. Amped Raptor as well. Wasteland as well. Let's not show my opponent that that's coming. So let's just Amped Raptor, see if we hit a removal spell for Delver immediately. I hit another Ocelot Pride. I will happily cast that. I have enough mana here that I am now interested in wastelanding my opponent. I have the City's Blessing. I am not interested in removing Delver of Secrets. I want this Swords to Plowshares to be used to stop a Murktide Regent that is more threatening. So now a thing of beauty is going to happen, folks. Let's just always yield to that too. Anyway, we have a Staff of the Storyteller with 6 counters on it, and just a couple of cats, just a few. Delver flips to Brainstorm, which is fine. You may Brainstorm. My opponent needs to find things to take out my onboard cards, which means that they can't keep protection or their stuff. They're in an awful spot. That is a Bobble. It's probably not what they want. You can take a peek at that card. Then I'll take a peek at that card. I respect the Delver attack. I really do. I'm at 12. I will draw a card. It's a Bloodstained Mire. That's kind of whatever. You can draw a card. And then I can draw a card. Prismatic Ending. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Pretty good. We don't really need to think about this. This is just totally fine to do. If I remove this, then that means that the Spirit token can attack in safely. Well, we have had overwhelming victories versus fair stuff. overwhelming losses to combo stuff. Let's see how this shakes out in the last round. This is a lot of fun to play. Okay, opening hand is what I would call fine. We are very vulnerable to Wasteland right now, and my card is temporarily a 6-card hand until we draw red mana to unlock Amp. Fuck. Right? The fuck you got to protect over there? Huh? What are you hiding? Rosie dog, show me your secrets. Oh. I would be very excited about this if my opponent's deck wasn't full of free interaction like Invigorate that can just invalidate this play. I'm still going to do it and save the swords for the next turn and hope this works. The Force of Will pitched a Daze. I mean, there could be another... Welcome. There we go. All right, things that can kill infect creatures. Thought Seizes are fine. If we feel desperate, Pyroblasts can interact with counterspells and also kill Blighted Agent. Cori-Steel Cutter is probably not optimal here. Staff of the Storyteller is a blocker, or Glistener Elf or Inkmoth Nexus. I'm fine with that. It's a blocker with bonus value. I like turning a couple of Thought Seizes into Cabal Therapies. Infect is a deck that can play a bunch of singletons, or like a wide variety of cards. So like there's Nadu Infect out there, for example. There's some Infect decks that will do things like run a singleton Stifle or something of that nature. And I saw very few cards from my opponent's deck before they conceded. I think I'm going to say this configuration is good. And if we go to a game 3, I might adjust some of these 5 cards. I think if we don't immediately die, we're really well positioned in this matchup. I can just make a bunch of bodies that I don't care about, like losing in combat or to chump blocking. I don't know about that one. I don't think I'm willing to keep this on the draw. I would consider it on the play, but probably still mulligan it. This is fine. Hopefully I don't die immediately. My opponent is going to have this window on their turn 2 where they can attempt to kill me. I'll throw back a Badlands and keep one of each fetch. That is a Trop and pass. That is fine for me. Drawing a 1-drop here would be solid. I'll take that. Land and pass. So I'm expecting land into Blighted Agent here. Just based on my opponent not doing anything on turn 1. I have played against Infect a lot, and I don't tend to fuck around with trying to time my removal spells for these perfect moments to get extra value. I just try to kill my opponent's stuff in spots like their end step or my turn, where pump spells that are used for protection don't blow me out. So this is a big moment. This is a moment where I can die. So there is an Embiggen. This is a 6/7. That's so much damage. This is back to a 1/1. I believe this is Cabal Therapy on Invigorate. No, Invigorate doesn't make sense. I would be dead. Okay, Invigorate doesn't make sense. So what is it? Just Daze, so that Bowmaster can't be dazed, is reasonable. I think it's Daze over Force of Will, since there's a Force of Will in Graveyard. Daze! Berserk is the last card. So I now get to play Bowmaster. Pendelhaven is tapped. I get to kill a Blighted Agent, Cabal Therapy, target you, sacrifice the Orc, take out Berserk. Cool. So my opponent could have played around Bowmaster by not activating Pendelhaven for the 1 extra damage last turn. Oh, yeah. Love that for me. It is slightly unclear to me, as someone who doesn't play Infect regularly, whether or not that Brainstorm immediately was worth it. I think it is, because Invigorate gets a kill this turn. But this does cost my opponent a damage if they don't find Invigorate, because they don't get to Pendelhaven. Alright, they did find Invigorate. Okay, I mean, this was exactly what I was talking about, where if I don't die in the early game, I am going to just win this, right? Like on the next turn, I get to play Staff of the Storyteller, and then I have a blocker for this. Like I get to play Guide of Souls and Staff of the Storyteller. I'm so good from there. Do I want one more Cabal Therapy on the play over, say, 2 Ajani? Or sorry, 2 more Cabal Therapies over 2 more Ajanis. A mix of those cards is good. I could do like a 3-3. I'm on the play, I think, going to do this. This is a single land hand, but this hand is insane. I'm going to keep this and treat 2 mana as the end game. As crazy as that is to say. I will be bad against Wasteland. I have to get a non-basic to cast my Thoughtseize here. Yeah. Let's go white-black and Thoughtseize. So I am going to take Veil of Summer here because it's good against Cabal Therapy and Thoughtseize. And we'll work through the rest of this shit in a minute. Hello? Photo? There we go. So there's Verdant. And my opponent will drop their Noble Hierarch. Yes. Nice. I even hit the next land. I probably use Bowmaster to kill Blighted Agent. So let's just Thoughtseize here. Oh, there's Invigorate and Berserk. I'm going to take Invigorate and Berserk here. Fetch red, black. Yeah, I'll take Berserk. So now we know the exact contents of my opponent's hands. They get to play Blighted Agent. I get to Bowmaster the Blighted Agent. And if I learn more about their hand, I can then flashback a Cabal Therapy later. And I'll, in theory, still have swords to Plowshares or the Inkmoth Nexus in a minute. This is going well. Bam and bam. Take out Blighted Agent. Inkmoth Nexus. Your days are numbered. There are 2 unknown cards. They basically need to be Invigorate plus Berserk quality. And that is not the case. I will take probably 2 Infect this turn. Yep, that's a-okay with me. Fine to cast Amped Raptor? Probably. Yeah. Sometimes I just get to use this to remove the Noble Hierarch, which is, like, fine. Yeah. I'll just make another body. That's perfectly fine. Bank a little energy for later. And we won't be using a removal spell during combat unless my opponent is presenting lethal. We'll just take some chip damage and try to remove Inkmoth Nexus at end of turn. I don't think it's crazy to not play Amped Raptor this turn to try and hold up Swords to Plowshares around a Daze effect. Alright, so opponent is casting that Ponder, so I will get to kill their Noble Hierarch here, making Inkmoth Nexus slightly less scary. Trigger, ping. Yep. Inkmoth gets fired up. And again, we don't attack this in combat. We just let our opponent hit us so they can't blow us out and make things worse. There's an Invigorate. At this point, that's enough damage that I will bite. It is a Legolas's Quick Reflexes, unfortunately. So I'm going to take 5, going to 7. These 2 Cabal Therapies are not doing me any favors here. I'd love to hit a Staff. Ocelot Pride. Not what I'm looking for. But this is a lot of damage. So this game comes down to, does my opponent naturally draw a pump spell? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10. So if they draw like an Embiggen here, they get me. They did not. GG, that'll do it. Did my opponent miss a removal opportunity by tapping Inkmoth Nexus with Legolas's Quick Reflexes on the previous turn? Like, did they miss a chance to get a little bit more value there? I don't remember exactly. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I'm going to say that this is solid but polarized. The fair and fair adjacent matchups, and by that I mean like I'm going to call Infect fair compared to some of the other things that we encountered this league, where my creature removal is relevant, felt very good. We're very low to the ground. We're pretty good at casting multiple spells. We're pretty good at using our mana. Staff of the Storyteller provides a good late game engine. Cori-Steel Cutter did some things throughout the league. I would say that I would not take it out of the deck. Like, there's very good late game synergy with Staff of the Storyteller, but I maybe wouldn't say that I am impressed with the card. It did some things. I'm not unhappy with it, But, you know, I'm not saying Cori-Steel Cutter S tier Mardu deck in the thumbnail or anything like that. This is a cool deck. This is a well-built deck. There's definitely some tension in the mana base with trying to make Wasteland work in the 3 colors. I definitely felt that throughout the league. I might cut the Caracas from the deck to just play one more dual land or one more fetch land. I think that's reasonable. Just make the colored mana situations slightly better. You would give up the ability to just Caracas bounce your own Ajani. That was not something that I was really thinking about throughout this league. No Deafening Silence in the sideboard is like a thing. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, is the upside of this worth the downside of not having Deafening Silence as just a slam it and forget about it thing versus combo? Also, is Surgical better than Leyline? Is 4x Leyline better than Surgical double Containment Priest? I don't know that it is. I understand the rationale of wanting to have Surgical alongside 8 discard spells, though. So I largely understand how this deck is built, and I'm going to give this one a thumbs up. I hope you all enjoyed watching this one, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. If you need some cards, you know where to go. Don't forget to use my promo code ThrabenU. Anyway, see ya!